This particular intersection in town is considered the cornerstone of the community. The four corners were really where the town started and where everything was happening. In addition to that having historical significance, the Palmer House was one of the first buildings constructed outside of the Twin Cities that they actually installed indoor plumbing and electricity. Sauk Center is also the boyhood home of the first American to win the Nobel Prize for Literature, Sinclair Lewis. And Sinclair Lewis also worked at the Palmer House and lived here briefly as well. If you read in any of his books and he's talking about the Minniemashie House, he's referring to the Palmer House. Before the Palmer House was built, there was a boarding house, saloon type structure that was here. Built in the 1850s, it was called the Sauk Center House. And it, like every other building in town at that time, was constructed of wood. And the building eventually succumbed to fire. And then that's when the Palmers came here and constructed the Palmer House in 1901. The Palmer family actually came to Sauk Center from Wheaton, Minnesota, and at the time that the community was really looking to have a first-class hotel built, our local newspaper actually put out a $5,000 stipend towards the construction of a facility like that. Mr. Palmer was a smart businessman, a great entrepreneur. He did many things in his life, and he knew it was a great opportunity. And although he worked in the hospitality industry his entire career, this location is the only one that was his namesake and was built from the ground up.
My grandfather and his sister grew up in the hotels, so for them, as children growing up in the hotels, they got to meet all the characters that came through here. And primarily at that time, people that were going and staying in hotels were salesmen. And they would bring their wares, they would drive on the train. And Sauk Center actually had two trains that went through the Northern Pacific and the Grand Central, and two depots in town. So they had a man who would pick them up, folks up at the depots and bring them to the hotel. This was considered a first-class hotel at the time.
I think some of the most interesting factors about the Palmer House, as far as the structure goes, the stained glass that you see in the building is all the original. We actually had it authenticated a few years ago. It was imported from Austria, which at a time before airplanes was quite the feat. And living in the somewhat stormy environment that we do, I'm surprised that it's all here and it's all intact yet. Probably 80% of the woodwork that you see in the building is the original, which, although the Palmer House had electricity installed, it was not constructed with any kind of electricity. So the woodwork you see is the original done by hand. And thankfully, everybody before me has repurposed the lumber and trim, those types of things that originally were in the building and have kept them here. Many of the light fixtures in the building are the originals yet, and there's also a tin ceiling in the lobby and in the pub that are both original as well. When the Palmer House was constructed, of course it was a big deal that it had electricity and indoor plumbing. They said within the first 6 months of the Palmer House being built, they had to replace every light switch in the building because people were so fascinated by coming in, and the sparkling and twinkling lights was a quote out of the newspaper at the time. At the time, the hotel had 44 sleeping rooms. 2 of them had a private bath. Otherwise, it was one shared restroom on each floor. The Palmer House is not the traditional hotel for the person that's, say, coming to town for a family reunion or a wedding to attend. It really kind of has become a destination again, and there is a huge interest within the paranormal field. A lot of people that have far more experience than me of traveling to other locations tell me repeatedly that there is a lot more activity here than most places. There's a funny thing about the Palmer House that once you visit, there's a part of you that kind of becomes attached to it too and makes you want to come back and spend more time. My staff is outstanding and it gets under your skin. We actually have coined it the Palmer House effect. When my husband and I first bought the Palmer House, it was to do nothing but essentially save it. We really didn't want another huge commitment like that, time or financial. And the irony of it is that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. I've found my purpose, I've found my passion, and I had no idea that it would be right here. My goal is to be here as long as I can and to maintain it so that it can be here for generations to come and instill a sense of importance and purpose to the history that we have. You just can't replace these buildings. You could probably do a really good replica, but there's more to it than just the building. It's the history inside, it's the stories that are here. I just believe it's incredibly important.
Visit pioneer.org/postcards to catch up on missed episodes and to find out more about your favorite segments. This program on Pioneer Public Television is funded by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund with money from the vote of the people of Minnesota on November 4th, 2008. Additional support provided by Mark and Margaret Yakel-Julien in honor of Shalom Hill Farm, a nonprofit rural education retreat center in a beautiful prairie setting near Windham in southwestern Minnesota. ShalomHillFarm.org. The Arrowwood Resort and Conference Center, your ideal choice for Minnesota resorts, offering luxury townhomes, 18 holes of golf, Darling Reflections Spa, Big Splash Water Park, and much more. Alexandria, Minnesota. Explore hundreds of lakes, trails, and attractions for a great vacation or a place to hold an event. ExploreAlex.com. Tri-State Brain and Spine Institute, with locations in Alexandria, Edina, Crookston, and Maple Grove. Doctors dedicated to evaluating and treating all types of brain and spine problems, no matter how complex.